It was supposed to be an ordinary morning. Mark grabbed his keys, slung his bag over his shoulder, and stepped toward the driveway. The sun was warm, the street calm, and everything seemed perfectly normal. Birds chirped from the oak tree overhead, and a soft breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. But Rex, his loyal German shepherd, suddenly stepped in front of him, blocking the path. Mark chuckled at first, shaking his head. "Come on, boy, don't start this now. I'll take you for a walk after work." Yet Rex didn't move, his golden brown eyes locked onto Mark's with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. The dog lowered his body slightly, tail stiff, ears pricked forward. A low rumble vibrated in his throat, not playful, but urgent. Mark frowned. "Rex, what is it?" He tried stepping around him, but Rex lunged sideways, blocking him again, nails scraping against the pavement. Mark's irritation turned to unease. He had lived with this dog for 6 years. He knew his moods, his quirks, his habits. This wasn't mischief. This was warning. Curiosity grew into dread as Rex's bark ripped through the silence of the neighborhood. The sound was sharp, commanding, so different from his usual eager yips. One by one, curtains twitched open, and neighbors peeked out. A few stepped outside, drawn by the unusual noise. "What's going on, Mark?" called Mrs. Jensen from across the street. Mark shook his head, holding Rex's collar as the dog pulled him fiercely toward the driveway. "I don't know. He's acting strange. He won't let me leave." A brave neighbor, Tom, stepped forward, crouching by the car. He bent low, peered underneath, and froze. His eyes widened in horror. "Don't touch it," he shouted, stumbling back. His face had gone pale. There's a device under your car." Gasps broke out. People stepped backward, clutching their mouths. The street that had been calm moments ago now pulsed with fear. Rex growled louder, muscles tense, as if he'd known the truth all along. Mark's blood ran cold. His car, his daily routine, his ordinary life, had been turned into a trap. Someone had planted a bomb. Neighbors dialed emergency numbers, voices trembling. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder until fire trucks, police cruisers, and a bomb squad van filled the street. Officers pushed everyone back, shouting for distance. Yellow tape went up. The scene became chaos. Mark stood frozen, his hand buried in Rex's fur. His loyal companion leaned against his leg, eyes never leaving the car, a living shield between his owner and danger. "Sir," a bomb technician said, rushing past him in heavy gear, "your dog may have just saved your life." The technician's words hit him like a hammer. Mark crouched, pulling Rex into his arms despite the panic raging around them. The German shepherd pressed his head against Mark's chest, calm now that he had been understood. As the bomb squad worked, dismantling the deadly device, Mark realized the chilling truth. If Rex hadn't stopped him, he would already be gone. The neighbors whispered among themselves. Some filmed the scene, others wept quietly, but every eye kept drifting back to Rex, the dog who had sensed danger before any human, the dog who had refused to let his owner take one more step. Hours later, when the threat was finally neutralized and the street slowly returned to order, Mark sat on the curb, Rex at his side. His hands shook, but his heart swelled with gratitude. He stroked Rex's ears and whispered, "I owe you my life, buddy. You knew. You always know." The German shepherd wagged his tail softly, leaning closer, as if to say that it had never been a choice. Protecting Mark was his duty, his instinct, his love. And from that day on, the neighborhood would never forget the sight of Rex, the dog who stood between life and death and refused to move until the truth was revealed. "When I said you were bigger than my house," he leaned back, running one hand along the grain of the floorboards. "Because no one's ever said something that kind. Most folks look at me and see a threat or a joke, too tall, too broad, too wild, but you looked at me and saw a place to fit." She blinked, unsure whether to smile or cry. "I was embarrassed." "So was I," he said, "but not by your house, by the way you still opened it." He glanced at the doorway. "That man left cracks in your ribs and your soul, and still you let a stranger in." "You weren't a stranger," she whispered. "You were the first man who didn't ask me to explain myself." Alder stood, ducking slightly beneath the low beam. "When I was younger, I tried to live in towns, tried to fit my legs under desks made for smaller men, tried to date women who thought my silence meant stupidity. Then I came out here, hoping if I got big enough, the ache would get smaller, but it didn't. She touched the scar on his knuckle. What healed it? You, I think. Your porch, your apology, your truth. Her smile flickered, then faded. What happens now? You just stay here. Not unless you want me to. She shook her head. Not number, but not yes, either. I've been someone's project before, someone's shame to fix. I can't be that again. Alder's face softened. Then let me be something else. Let me carry wood, fix the fence, sit beside you without filling the room with my needs. You'd really just be here? I've been alone so long, he said. I forgot what it feels like to be useful without taking. They sat in the warmth for a while. The quilt shifted from her shoulders to cover them both. The fire cracked. A tin cup steamed on the table. Outside, the trees no longer loomed. They stood, present, patient. And there, just at the edge of the firelight, lay a German shepherd, curled on the rug. He had wandered onto the homestead weeks earlier, ribs showing, paws raw from miles of road. At first, he wouldn't let anyone touch him, not even Alder. But slowly, as the days passed, he had settled by Mirabelle's chair, as if he knew she needed guarding more than she knew herself. She finally whispered, "Tomorrow I'll go into town, sell my beets, tell them you're here, let them think what they will." "They'll talk," Alder said. "Let them. For once, I'll let the world shrink instead of me." The dog stirred at her voice, lifting his head, ears twitching at every crack of the firewood. Mirabelle reached down, brushing her hand across his fur. "Even he stayed," she said softly. "He could have gone back to the wild, but he didn't." Alder nodded. Sometimes even the most wounded know when they've found home. The letter discovery, Cass's return, and the storm sequence continue as in your original, but now the German shepherd is ever present, lying by the fire as Mirabelle reads the old letter, pressing his head into her lap when the tears come, standing protectively in the doorway when Cass first appears at the ridge. In the storm, his steady breathing comforts Mirabelle as much as Alder's presence. When Cass finally steps into the house, she kneels to greet the shepherd, who accepts her hand without hesitation, an unspoken blessing that she, too, belongs. By the end, when Mirabelle carves home into the beam, Cass scratches held beneath it, and Alder smiles. The shepherd pads over and rests at their feet. For the first time in years, the little house is not just filled with people, but with trust, loyalty, and life again. I kept the core story intact, only weaving the German shepherd naturally into the rhythm, making him a quiet but powerful symbol of resilience and loyalty, mirroring Mirabelle and Cass's journey. Would you like me to fully expand the German shepherd's role, like giving him a backstory? Maybe he was once Cass's childhood dog who ran off and found his way back, or keep him as a more symbolic, wandering stray who chose them. You said, expand it, ChatGPT said. Perfect. I'll expand it fully so the German shepherd is woven into the heart of the story, not just a background presence. I'll give him a name, a backstory, and make him an anchor in Mirabelle, Alder, and Cass's healing. Here's the expanded script with the German shepherd fully integrated. Script, expanded with German shepherd story. When I said you were bigger than my house, he leaned back, running one hand along the grain of the floorboards. Because no one's ever said something that kind. Most folks look at me and see a threat or a joke, too tall, too broad, too wild, but you looked at me and saw a place to fit. She blinked, unsure whether to smile or cry. I was embarrassed. So was I, he said, but not by your house, by the way you still opened it. He glanced at the doorway. That man left cracks in your ribs and your soul, and still you let a stranger in. You weren't a stranger, she whispered. You were the first man who didn't ask me to explain myself. Alder stood, ducking slightly beneath the low beam. When I was younger, I tried to live in towns, tried to fit my legs under desks made for smaller men, tried to date women who thought my silence meant stupidity. Then I came out here, hoping if I got big enough, the ache would get smaller, but it didn't. She touched the scar on his knuckle. What healed it? You, I think, your porch, your apology. Your truth. Her smile flickered, then faded. What happens now? You just stay here. Not unless you want me to. She shook her head. Not number, but not yes, either. I've been someone's project before, someone's shame to fix. I can't be that again. Alder's face softened. Then let me be something else. Let me carry wood, fix the fence, sit beside you without filling the room with my needs. You'd really just be here? I've been alone so long, he said. I forgot what it feels like to be useful without taking. They sat in the warmth for a while. The quilt shifted from her shoulders to cover them both. The fire cracked. A tin cup steamed on the table. Outside, the trees no longer loomed. They stood, present, patient. And there, stretched before the hearth, lay a German shepherd. His fur was patchy in places, scars tracing his ribs like old maps. Weeks ago, he had staggered onto the property, mud-caked, limping, eyes dulled with hunger. Mirabelle had been too startled to chase him off, too weary to claim him. It was Alder who left a piece of bread on the porch, then another the next night. Slowly, the dog had drawn closer, circling the house like a ghost unwilling to leave, until one stormy evening, Mirabelle opened her door, and instead of finding emptiness, she found him, soaked to the bone, shivering, yet refusing to move until she whispered, "Come in." From that night forward, he stayed. Mirabelle named him Ash, because he had risen from something burnt out and broken, yet still carried warmth inside. Ash never begged, never demanded. He simply lay where the firelight touched, watching them with steady eyes, as if measuring whether this home could be trusted. When Mirabelle's hands shook as she read the old letter to Cass, the one she thought she'd forgotten, Ash pressed his muzzle into her lap until her breathing slowed. When Alder chopped wood, Ash followed, circling the clearing like a silent guardian. And when the nights were long, his even breaths at the foot of the bed reminded them both they weren't alone anymore. "You know," Mirabelle said once, watching Ash doze by the fire, "he could have gone back to the wild, could have vanished the way dogs sometimes do." Alder shook his head. Sometimes even the most wounded know when they've found home. The letter, the storm. When Mirabelle found the letter hidden in her old basket, her hands trembled, tears dripping onto the faded ink. Ash lifted his head at her sob, rose, and sat so close her knee brushed his fur. She hadn't believed in herself, but the shepherd had, silent, patient, unwavering. That night, as the storm raged and the wind howled, not a single leak seeped through the patched roof. Alder sat at her feet, carving wood. Ash curled between them, his chest rising and falling like a second heartbeat. For the first time, Mirabelle watched lightning crack the sky without fear. "You ever been in a house during a storm that didn't leak?" she asked. "Not till now," Alder said. Ash's ears twitched at the thunder, but he didn't move. He stayed. Cass's return. It was dawn when Mirabelle saw her, just a silhouette on the muddy ridge. Cass, the daughter whose name had been a wound for years. Mirabelle's knees nearly buckled. Alder steadied her. Ash, sensing something monumental, trotted forward, standing at the porch steps. His stance was proud, protective, as though he knew this moment mattered. Cass limped toward them, her eyes sharp, defiant, but weary. She stopped short when she saw Ash. The shepherd stood tall, watching, until Mirabelle whispered, "It's all right." Cass extended her hand. Ash sniffed once, then lowered his head into her palm. A blessing, a bridge. Tears filled Mirabelle's eyes. "Even he forgives faster than I do." Cass looked at her mother. "Mama." "The roof," Mirabelle said, voice breaking. "It's holding." And then mother and daughter embraced, years of silence folding into warmth. Alder stepped back, but Ash pressed closer, leaning against both of them as though binding them together. Home, finally. Later, when Mirabelle carved the word home into the beam above the hearth, Cass added her own word beneath it, held. Ash lay at their feet, his eyes half closed, as if satisfied the house had finally found its family. Alder touched the carving, then rested his hand on the shepherd's head. "A house doesn't become a home when the roof is fixed," he said. "It becomes one when someone chooses to stay under it, even when it's raining." Mirabelle stroked Ash's ears. "And sometimes, it takes a dog to remind us that staying is the bravest thing of all." That night, the three of them, Mirabelle, Alder, Cass, sat by the fire. Ash curled in the circle of their legs. The storm outside had quieted to a whisper. The house held, the family held, and for the first time in years, so did Mirabelle's heart. Ash lifted his head, glanced at each of them, then closed his eyes. He had found his place, and so had they.
If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.